It's 6 o'clock on June 23rd, 2020. Good evening. I'm Jan De Silva, Chair of the New Bedford Community Preservation Committee, and this open meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. This meeting will feature public comment. When the time for public comment arises, I will make an announcement and invite members of the public to submit their comments. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the city website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and for any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. So, I'm welcoming you to the Community Preservation Plan Review public meeting. We hold this meeting once a year to go over our plan for the upcoming FY21, so you have a sense of the projects that are being funded, the projects that have been funded, the budget for the year, and also get a sense of what kind of application you can complete. We will be going out asking for applications in September, so this gives the community the opportunity to see what categories you could possibly apply to the community preservation in. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jessica Bailey, who is the CPC coordinator, and she will do the presentation. Jessica, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Jan.
You're welcome.
So good evening, everyone. So what I'm going to do, the format of tonight's meeting is I will be going through the presentation, and then at the end, I will ask for questions or comments. So if you have any, if you could just hold off on them, because I do have everyone except Jan and I muted just for the sake of background noise and such, but there will be opportunity at the end if anyone has any questions regarding the process or anything I've gone over, or any comments regarding goals or priorities of that you'd like to see added to this year's plan. So, just a quick overview of CPA. It was passed, it was 20 years ago now, and now there's 176 communities in Massachusetts that have community preservation and use that to raise funds and create a local dedicated fund to preserve open space and historic sites and resources, create community housing, and develop outdoor recreational facilities. New Bedford voted in CPA in November of 2014, I'm sorry, 6 years ago. And now is joined, as I said, about half of the municipalities in the Commonwealth have adopted CPA. CPA, when the voters in New Bedford voted it in, they agreed that a 1.5% surcharge on the residential and commercial property bills would be the amount that would be agreed upon. There's two exemptions for that. On the first 100,000 of any taxable income is one who is low or moderate income or low and moderate income senior housing that they would qualify for. But that property has to be owned and occupied by any person who qualifies for those two levels. The other funding stream, in addition to the surcharge, is the CPA trust fund. And the trust fund provides an annual matching funds for what the city raises every year. This past year, FY20, which we're just finishing, the final match was 23.92%. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Department of Revenue released an estimated amount of 11.92%. That number may change come November before the CPC begins deliberations on the FY21 applications. But due to the ever-changing situation, they're being conservative and working with an 11.92% match. For those who haven't seen this, this is a surcharge calculation. We took the average single-family value of a home in FY20, which is $238,573, minus the first $100,000 exemption, which would leave a taxable value of the $138,573. If you multiply the tax rate, the tax basis, you end up with a surcharge on that property would be $33.59 for the entire year, which comes out to about $8.39 a quarter, which is in our community has already shown a lot of progress and value in the various projects that have been completed in the last 18 months. Each community has to have a community preservation committee, and tonight Jan DeSilva, who is our chair, is joining us. There's 9 members. 4 of them come from the general public that are appointed by the mayor, and 5 of them come from the 5 entities listed here. And each of these entities have also provided an opportunity every year to and update the plan and provide the CPC with updated goals and needs in the community as they've been identified by each of these individual entities. The committee has 4 main responsibilities. The first one is to assess these needs, and that's part of tonight's process. As I said, they do go and ask for input from the city's boards and commissions, and they hold this meeting so that we can gain public input. Because this is, CPA is for the community, and the citizens of the city have the opportunity to provide input about what they see as the needs in the community. The CPC then takes all of this information and develops community preservation plans, which basically establishes the committee's priorities for recommending projects to City Council in the upcoming application cycle. In addition, they have to provide an annual budget, which establishes how the committee intends to allocate the annual revenue. And at the tail end of the process, they make the project recommendations to City Council. The application process over the last 2 years has been very competitive, and we don't anticipate that will change for FY21. But throughout the process, at the end of it, the committee then gets together and makes the recommendations to City Council, and that includes the amount that they are recommending as well as how much they want, what category they're allocating it from. The City Council then can approve the amount, reject the recommendation, or reduce the CPC's funding recommendations. They are not able to, by legislation, they are not able to add funding to a recommended project, nor are they able to add a project that was not recommended by CPC. As the process is a partnership between the CPC and the City Council, and in our case, City Council, and other communities, it's town meeting. So they take the recommendations and review them, and then can act in one of 3 ways. So each year, the CPC is required to spend or set aside 10% of the annual revenues for three purposes. And as you can see in this pie chart, there's historic resources, open space and recreation, community housing, the budgeted reserve, and then administrative fund. The budgeted reserve, as it constitutes the largest part, is 65%. That can be spent in any of the 3 categories. So while 10% is restricted and has to be used in those categories, the other 65% can be used by the CPC in any of the 3 categories. For example, the first year, the CPA did not see any community housing applications. So those funds rolled into the next fiscal year, and those funds are dedicated. They can only be spent on community housing. For the historic resources and open space and recreation categories, the last 2 fiscal years, the CPC has recommended the full amount that was set aside, so there was nothing to roll over. So this year's budget, which has been recommended to City Council and we believe will be in front of the Finance Committee next week, shows that we have a local surcharge we anticipate will be just over $1.7 million, with a state match of about $120,000 and change, and then the fund balance will be approximately $223,000. Now the fund balance, as I alluded to before, is where if money isn't spent, it stays in a category. In other cases of the undesignated money and administrative money, if that's not spent at the end of a fiscal year, it rolls into the fund balance. And the fund balance is money that can then get carried forward to the next year for use on other projects that are applying. So we have approximately $2,056,098 for total revenue. If you take out the 5% set aside for the program administration, there'll be approximately $1,965,272 available, which is approximately $740,000 more than last year, which is fantastic because we feel that given the current status of the shutdowns that many of nonprofits have experienced and the shifting priorities of other lenders, we believe that the CPC will see a number of applications. So hopefully with these increased funds, we'll be able to do more across the board than in last year. So to give you an overview, because tonight is really about gathering information. If you have ideas, it's not necessarily talking about if you're coming from an organization, what ideas you have. And I'm happy to talk to anybody offline about an idea that you have, and the whole process will kick off in September. But for the short term, this is about talking about the goals and priorities that we have within the city. And all of these documents are available on the CPC's website. If you go to the city's website and the drop down, it's under city offices, is community preservation. You go in there and all of these are linked. So please don't feel like you have to think about this tonight. The public comment period will be open until July 14th. So you can read through these materials, think about it, and provide us with feedback or a suggestion, even if it's a suggested project. That would be included in the next year's plan, and then we would find the appropriate goal and category that it may fall under. But in thinking through projects, the DOR's created this chart that shows the allowable uses, and it's really about the action verbs of acquire, create, preserve, support, rehabilitate, and restore. And if you go across, you can acquire any, in this case, land or real estate under any of those categories. But for instance, you can't create historic resource. For support, you can't, operational support and maintenance costs are not allowable under CPA. And then rehabilitate and restore, as you can see under open space and housing, the caveat is that it has to have been acquired or created with CPA funds in order to be eligible for CPA under those for rehabilitation and restore. So it's a fairly good tool as you're thinking about different ideas that you may have in the city or goals that you see in the city, that whether or not they'd be something that could take place. Just to briefly go over the approval process. So part of the plan is the application. It's the application instructions and then the two-part application forms. Because of the size of the grants that a lot of organizations are looking for, and because as complex as it is, it's also not, it's simple but complex, the CPA. So what we've done is we have a two-part process for the process here in New Bedford. Project applicants can submit an eligibility determination for review. I believe right now September 3rd will be the day where we kick off and do the technical workshop. I'm hoping that'll be in person, but that is up to the governor and the mayor as to what is open at that point. But everyone will be notified via email and on Facebook postings on the Department of City Planning's Facebook page. Eligibility determination forms are submitted. The projects are reviewed, and the CPC then invites eligible projects to apply. That usually takes place by end of September, very beginning of October. Project applications are then due right before Thanksgiving. The CPC then invites the applicants to present at a public meeting. They have a 5-minute presentation followed by a Q&A by the CPC, and then time allowed for public comment. After that process is completed, they then review the project applications and recommend a list to City Council. When they're submitted to City Council, they're referred to the Finance Committee for further review where they're individually voted upon, and then there's a package they're sent back out to City Council for their final approval. So that's just how it moves along. Let's get back to the categories. So open space is defined but isn't limited to these bullet points. And in New Bedford, there isn't a lot of open space that is available for acquisition. The first year we did fund a project that the Buzzards Bay Coalition did up at the Cushnet Sawmill project, but as there's not a ton of open space. So what it is really about working with the open space that we have. And any open space project has to have a permanent deed restriction because any real estate property interest acquired utilizing CPA funds has to have a restriction on it permanently. Then we have recreation. Recreation is these bullet points as well, but it is strictly related to outdoor passive or active recreation. It cannot be used for gyms or stadiums or maintenance. It cannot be used for artificial turf. However, it can be used for the prepping of the space, but not the actual cost or installation of the turf. So other communities have been able to use CPA to fund parts of the project, but not all of the project. But again, when you're thinking about recreation, it has to be an outdoor passive or active recreation use. So this particular slide, and there's two others, are available on the website and as separate from the PowerPoint, and it gives you the definitions on the left with the DOR chart at the top, and then what the goals and priorities are currently. Now, these goals and priorities come from, as you can see, two different plans that went through a very public and thorough process, and the CPA plan takes from those and distills it for the goals and priorities that would meet under CPA. So I was looking through these. If there's something that you see that you feel is not being addressed, please, that's what we're looking for today, is feedback about what it is that isn't being addressed. And it could be a specific project, and we can see if it fits within the goals and priorities, if it is something that you see that needs to be done in our community. Then next is historic resources. Each CPA community seems to have its category that is more heavily utilized than others. In the Boston area, there's a lot of use of CPA for affordable housing for obvious reasons. The cost of housing is so expensive. In our community, historic resources and then open space and recreation, and then affordable housing or community housing is how it goes. So for historic resources, this could be anything. And as you see the definition, it's a building, it's a structure, it's a vessel, it's real estate, it's documents, it's artifacts. The only thing is it has to either be listed in the State Register of Historic Places, or it has to be determined by the local historic commission to be significant. And that determination does not have to take place before an eligibility determination form is put in, but it needs to be completed by the time the full application is submitted in November. And Ann Laura, who's the preservation planner for the city, is happy to discuss with any project the process by which that happens. And I would suggest that you do it sooner as you're thinking than later. And again, deed restrictions are necessary for any property that's acquired, and as well as any project utilizing CPA funding. This, as I said, this slide is also available, and you can see the goals and priorities. Again, the goals and priorities are taken from the Massachusetts State Historic Preservation Plan, as well as the objectives that were articulated back in 2010 at the preservation forum that took place here in the city. Then community housing. So for community housing, CPA funds can be spent on acquisition, rehab, and support. They can also use monies for rehab and restoration of community housing that was acquired or created using CPA funding. And then CPA is defined as community housing for low or moderate income, as well as low or moderate income senior housing. And the median income is determined by HUD. That information is, the HUD information is available on their website, as well as I can help you with any information if this is a project or a category that you're interested in. And then again, the goals and priorities. And in this goals and priorities, not all of these are eligible for CPA funding, but they may be a positive outcome of a project that overall is eligible under CPA funding. So why we're all here tonight is for the preservation needs assessment, because we are mandated by CPA to create a new plan every year that reflects the needs, the goals, the resources within our community. And the CPC in New Bedford is very clear about trying to be as transparent as possible and providing all this information for the community. It's really about creating criteria so that applicants understand how the CPC is evaluating. It's about creating processes so it's very clear about here's when everything is due, here's when you're going to expect to hear back from the CPC. And also, it also provides background information so the City Council, when they're reviewing the recommendations, understand the basis by which the CPC made these recommendations based upon the goals and priorities articulated in the plan. So that's why it's important if there's anything in that you feel it should be added, that is part of this process and it's part of the FY21 plan. So as I said, it's a very short presentation. We really want to hear from you, from the community, and you can send the information to the CPA at newbedford-mass.gov until July 14th. That information will be distilled into the plan, and then the CPC will be reviewing it, and their vote on the FY20 plan, I'm sorry, FY21 plan, sorry about that, I'm still in FY21, is July 28th. So it gives me approximately 2 weeks to gather whatever public input has been sent and distill it into the plan so that the CPC can review prior to the meeting and vote. So as I'm saying, we're going to distill that in. The materials will be available, as I said, hopefully September 3rd will be the technical workshop. And January will be the public meetings where project applicants can do the presentations. And then tentatively, late winter, early spring of 2021, please let there not be another pandemic, will be when the City Council receives the recommendations. As I said, the planning, the City Community Preservation has on the city website its own webpage. We typically meet the fourth Tuesday of the month. It's not really each month, but if it is going to be, there's always the agenda is posted at least minimum of 48 hours prior to. And that's all I have. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And what I'm going to do is close this out so that I can see everybody, hopefully, and see if anybody has any input or any questions that they might need. And I'm going to, let's see, I just need to unmute everybody, sorry. Okay. All right, so I think I've allowed everybody to unmute themselves. Does anybody have any questions or any comments, any suggestions about the plan, if you've had a chance to look at it? And please, by all means, if you haven't, please take some time to look at it. There is time for you to look at it and provide us with some input. The CPC is very eager to learn about what the community feels is the goals and priorities. Because after all, it is their tax money that is used to fund the CPA fund. So anyone have any questions?
Jessica, you muted everybody and then I just unmuted myself.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, you have to unmute yourself, sorry. But I think that's it. Jan, do you have anything to add regarding the process? Because normally we break out into groups and breakout groups with the poster boards the individual ones, so we can discuss projects and ideas. And unfortunately, that's not as easy this time. But if anybody has any questions, raise your hand. Otherwise, it's Jan. Do you have anything else to add regarding the plan?
No, I don't. Thank you for a great job doing the presentation. And hopefully a lot of people got plenty of information to be able to help them figure out projects to come back to us for September. And I'm looking to see if anybody's raising their hand too, and I don't see anybody raising their hand. Okay, we do have one question from EM. I think you have to.
Hi. Hi, it's
Hi. Hi.
Emily Mead from the Whaling Museum. I just wanted
Hi,
to ask,
Emily.
it's sort of a silly question. Thanks so much, but it's sort of a silly question. I just wanted to ask what the date was of the technical workshop that you mentioned.
Oh, that's not a silly question. It's September 3rd, and I'm hoping the library will be open and we can have a socially distant indoor meeting. I think we just have to wait and see. But what I will do is, once the plan is approved, I will send out an email to everyone that's on the email list. And if you're not on the email list, please send me an email and I will add you to it. And then that way everybody can see the plan and you can see the application materials. I will post the application materials with the fillable PDFs on or about September 3rd. I try to give MIS a little bit of room, but I do like to try to get it online by the 3rd, or the date that I have the workshop, so people can go to it. But the fillable PDF will be available for the eligible determination form. But at least you'll be able to see prior to the what's covered within both the eligibility determination and the application.
Jessica, I think I would like to mention a great resource for possible applicants is going to the statewide Community Preservation Coalition website.
Yes.
They do have a database of every single project that has used community preservation funding. So if you have any ideas and you're not sure if it's been funded, or because we've only funded 2 rounds so far.
Right.
That way you can go and examine what's happening within the state. And those are projects that all did receive community preservation funding from a different town or city, but it's out there. The information is definitely out there.
Yeah. The Community Preservation Coalition is an independent organization. They lobby and support the CPAs and CPCs. They lobby and support for CPA. They assist municipalities who are trying to pass CPA, and then they support those municipalities who have passed it. They are an excellent resource. Their database is really well done, in that you can search by category. You can search by keywords. The only caveat is there have been changes to what CPA covers and doesn't cover. So if you find something that's from 10 plus years ago, that's related to churches, there was a lawsuit, so that has changed how some CPA communities are funding. If you have any questions about your project, I am happy to speak with anyone about your project if you feel it's going to be eligible, if there's some question you might have. But the Community Preservation Coalition's website is excellent, and it's a great resource. And I use it myself because there's times when I go and look for answers and they guide me in the right direction. So for the plan, like I said, the any feedback that you have, if you take a look at it, it is long, because it is the draft is up on the website, so you can take a look at it. So you can actually get a first look at the eligibility determination, the instructions, and the application itself. But the priorities, the goals, and such are all detailed within the plan. I just pulled them out in those slides so that it's easier for people to look at if they have any questions regarding what the city's goals and plans are, because there's a lot going on at any moment in the city, and it sometimes may feel that something's not being addressed, but it truly is being addressed. And it may not be this fiscal year, but it may be next. So I'm hoping that FY20 recommendations will be heard by City Council in the next week or so. We're waiting for confirmation, and then those will be moving ahead, and we'll be able to post those. And those recommendations, if you want to see what applications look like last year, those are also still up online, so you can take a look at those. So that's all I think I have. If anybody has any other questions or comments, like I said, through July 14th, Cable Access is filming this tonight. I think they're going to run it. I'm not sure when, but I'm sure it'll be in their loop and available on their website. So if there was something you missed, or if somebody says I missed that meeting, please direct them to that. And if you have any questions, I'm always available. Now, whether the plan or the application process, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help. So Jan, do you have anything else?
No, just thank you for coming. And I guess thank everyone for coming. Actually, we know these meetings don't have a lot of people attend them because I guess people get their information in so many ways.
Yes.
We do a really good job of trying to make sure everyone in the community knows about community preservation because we want to keep our community beautiful and preserved and plenty of open space for people to enjoy.
Yes.
So I guess I'll thank those who came. And if you have any comments, as Jessica mentioned, public comments are being accepted until July 14th, 2020. Just use the email address and look forward
Oh, she froze.
on September 3rd.
Oh, there.
Oh,
Yeah, September
me?
3rd. There you go. Now you're not frozen.
Okay. We look
Great.
forward to
All right.
seeing you on September 3rd.
And if you're not on the email, please just send me a quick email and I'm happy to add you to the email list so you can be up to date. Great. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Have a great night.